What's going on, trading card game players? Figs here with Figs Forum, bringing you another deck profile. So I had a very successful weekend. I was able to actually go X1 during a 1K event. I was able to split with the first and second place. And yeah, the deck performed really well. I made a couple small changes, so I did want to go over those small changes, as well as explain a couple different ways that I was able to actually play the deck, as it performed very well. And there was certain things that I did differently in playing the deck that allowed me to not rely so much on RNG. Although obviously RNG is a big factor in this deck because we are looking to mill our Phantom Knight cards. But yeah, I definitely played it a little bit different. I kind of wanted to go over how I was doing that because I think it's important, especially when you're playing this deck, specifically with the Phantom Knight engine, because of course you want to be able to maximize your opportunities to be able to make certain plays. So of course I've transformed the deck so that it played much better, and it performed very well. I ended up playing against one ExoSister, one Weather Painter, both of them actually hitting me with Dimensional Shifter game 1 and game 3. And I was still able to, win the match. I also played against Despia. I played against 2 Splight and 2 Mathmec. So yeah, it was definitely a very successful weekend. The only thing that I pretty much lost to was just Splight. And as I said, I ended up splitting with him for first and second. So let's go over the list, and I'll go over a couple different things that I played differently, and talk about a couple of things. I won't take up too much time. But yeah, let's go and get into it. So we'll start with the Phantom Knight cards. We're still playing the 3 traps, 1 Shade, 2 Fogblade. So the biggest thing for me was actually Shade Brigandine. I have to make sure that anyone who's playing the Phantom Knight engine understands that to not side this out games 2 and 3, because a lot of times we are siding in other traps like evenly, and sometimes obviously milling traps can conflict with obviously Shade Brigandine. You want to make sure that if you have the ability to pull him out, the minute you send a Phantom Knight to grave, you most definitely do so. There was a lot of times where I actually wish I had access to this as early on in the turn as possible. We are only playing one XYZ that's actually a level 4, but it's a huge thing, because obviously being able to have Time Thief Redoer with a monster and trap means that we're able to trigger our abilities for Tearlaments, being able to also banish him, being also able to interrupt our opponent's board. And then, of course, if we pick up a spell off the top of our opponent's deck, we're also able to get a draw. So it was actually very huge. Also, he has an additional body that is free. So a lot of times I did need access to him, or if my opponent interrupted me and I wasn't able to get another level 4 on the board, this was an easy way to get to a level 4. And unfortunately, I locked myself out sometimes by waiting too long, by milling too many cards during the turn, or I sided it out and realized that I needed it going into games 2 and 3. So I'll definitely say don't side this out. There are a lot of situations where this card can put in a lot of work because it is an easily accessible card. So we played just the 3 traps, of course, and then we've got the monster lineup here. We've got our 2 boots, 2 gloves, 2 Torn Scale, and 1 cloak. Yeah, so that definitely didn't change for anything in terms of what we're playing. We want to make sure that we are still playing 2 of each. I think 2 of each is definitely very important. The 1 cloak is fine. He is actually the least important, unfortunately, out of all the ones that we are playing, because of course, we're only using him to pretty much search out the trap monster or a boot. Otherwise, we're not really trying to commit our normal summon to any of these, because these normal summons are pretty bad. And a lot of times we want boots in grave because we do want to end on a trap. So we're not so much as looking to get it in hand as we are to really just get it in the grave. So that was the monster lineup for the Phantom Knights. Then, of course, we have the Tearlaments. So we've got 3 Rhino Heart, 3 Sheeran, and then we've got the 3 Maril and the 3 Havness. So obviously it's very standard. I will most definitely say that these were probably the MVP cards in which I was using or abusing, at least with Leviair. So a lot of times what I would do is when I was setting up my plays, I would normally go for the normal summon of Rhino Heart. I'll send whatever I know my opponent's going to DD Crow and that I know I need to bring back with Leviair in order to advance my game state. So a lot of times I'll commit to the Rhino Heart right off rip. My opponent will usually DD Crow the first thing that I send. And then what I'll end up doing is I'll find a way to mill, find a way to obviously continue to, progress my board or my grave. And then what I'll normally do is I'll bring back whatever I ended up wanting to send or needed to send based on what was in my hand. So a lot of times, I would end up, sending this, bringing it back because it's a level 3. So I work with the Phantom Knight lineup. Or I would send Maril, get a free mill 2. Or I would send Sheeran because I needed another level 4 because maybe I had the Shade Brigandine. So, it's definitely nice to be able to know that because so many people are playing DD Crow, that you have the accessibility of Leviair to be able to actually set up your board in your hand, just kind of contingent on what your opponent's going to react with. So that actually helped out a lot because, again, everyone's playing DD Crow. Then, of course, we're playing the 1 trap and the 3 field card. Very standard 1 trap because we don't want to play too many traps. because of shade. And then of course, we are playing the Fog Blades, which is, best trap in the game. 3 Dark Ruler No More. And then of course the good one-ofs. This hasn't changed. This lineup is still the same. Of course, we're playing the good one-ofs and then the 3 Dark Ruler No More. I wouldn't play Droplet, unfortunately, because I don't believe that it's as good as it was before. I think Dark Ruler No More is obviously the better card. Forbidden Droplet is nice, obviously, but, we don't want to really lose cards out of our hand because, unfortunately, the only cards that really belong in the grave are the Phantom Knights, and nothing else, in our deck triggers off of the cost of sending for Forbidden Droplet. So one of the changes that I made here was actually putting in Snow. It was a very huge addition, made a huge difference because, of course, we're looking to have an additional card to interrupt around Dark Ruler No More. So if we did get Dark Rulered, or if our board did get shut off, or if we did get evenly, we still had access to Fairy Tale Snow, which allowed us to be able to at least deal with, any cards our opponent may have, that they're trying to play around. But yeah, this card was really good. I wanted to make sure, again, that I had something additional. So I threw in a Snow. And then, of course, we've got our 2 Shaddols. If anyone doesn't know why I play Shaddol Hedgehog, I play Shaddol Hedgehog for the Cherubini so that I'm able to set up having our access to our window. So that's really the biggest thing. I always try to search for trap when I go for kit because this is obviously something that I'm going to set up during my opponent's turn. I usually never end on window. I always set it up during my opponent's turn because it's harder for your opponent to deal with. If they have to already Dark Ruler your current board, then you're able to use the trap to make window, shuts them down even further, and can sometimes get them stuck depending on the type of line that they went through. So you've got the 1 Jackalope, the 1 Tsukinoko, the 1 Moth, and the 3 Nessie. So this is the other change that I made, was adding in the Mothman. I needed an additional name for me to be able to use for the Danger monsters, because obviously we get stuck with so many normal summons in our hand because of the Phantom Knight lineup that we do want to have the ability to pitch as many cards as we can. Also, the biggest thing was the way that I play the deck. I know a lot of people, when they play the Dangers with the Tearlaments, they're using the Dangers first because they're obviously trying to not rely so much on actually hitting the Dangers. We want advantage from not being able to, hit a Danger, hit something else, get a summon and a draw. But I was actually holding on to these only because in this deck you have so many more cards and so many more options in your hand that you do usually want to discard. But you also want to be able to resolve the effects of a lot of the cards that you do have in hand, like your Sheeran. You want to make sure that you're getting the normal summon off your Morel, your Rhino Heart. So a lot of them you don't really want to usually discard. I normally try to wait because a lot of times, of course, we are playing the Phantom Knight Torrent skill. So pitching these cards we do get value out of, especially the Mothman. I like that a lot. Being able to summon Torrent skills, pitch it, and then being able to trigger his ability to draw one and discard, because then it could directly allow us to be able to resolve the effect of, any of our Tearlaments. And then, of course, being able to pitch Nessie allowed us to search any of these. So it definitely does help a lot, especially for the way it works with the Phantom Knight engine. But also, again, once your hand gets low and you're stuck with even just one Phantom Knight name and you need another one engraved, you have 1 and 2, you're able to, go for that 50-50 chance. Or if you don't hit it, obviously, you have multiple chances. If Nessie hit Nessie, Jackalope hit Jackalope, and then you get a free body on the board, or you get a free level 4 on the board. So that's why I really wanted to play the Mothman. The draw and discard definitely comes in clutch in this deck, especially in this variant, because we have so many cards that rely on the graveyard. But also, of course, Jackalope allows us to go into any level 3 or any level 4, which allows us to be able to access pretty much everything in our extra deck. So that's it for the main board. Though we'll go through the extra deck. Like I said, one small change in the extra deck from before, but we've got 2 kit, 1 Rhino Heart. Obviously, that's standard. We wanted to play, as much of this option as possible because, of course, even though we are a combo deck, we want to make sure that we have access to everything. So we wanted to make sure that we did 2 kit and 1 Rhino Heart. Then, of course, we've got our 2 Dragostapelia. I like playing the 2s of everything just because, obviously, recycling is really great. It makes it easier for you to play the long game. And, of course, if your opponent likes to clear your board, especially after a Zeus, it can be very difficult for you to come back if you're only playing 1-ofs of everything. 1 Winda, because you only need 1. 1 Time Thief Redoer. Again, this is our only level 4 rank. Again, it's great. I love this card in this deck. I mean, I played it always in Phantom Knights anyways, but this card in this deck allows us to interact with our opponent pretty insanely, of course, being able to fusion, being able to bounce something off their board on top of their deck, and then potentially, possibly getting a draw. 2 of the rank 3s that we're playing, or level 3s that we're playing, or XYZs, whatever you want to call them, were the Levier and the Breaksword. These cards were actually very good because, as I said, I was setting up a lot of plays around my Levier with Rhino Heart. I know they would DD Crow, so I knew exactly what I wanted to bring back. So I would heavily rely on Levier to bring whatever it is that need to be brought back. And then Breaksword actually came in clutch as well. A lot of times if we were, summoning our Sheeran and not hitting a Sheeran name, but we had Phantom Knights in the grave, we were able to use Breaksword to pop our Sheeran and pop one of our opponent's cards and then actually get a fusion off of it as well. That actually won me a couple of games where I was just basically just going through Breaksword, popping stuff on my field and resolving some of our effects. You can do the same thing with Clydoheart. You can do the same thing with Kit. You can do the same thing with any of the Tearlament monsters. Breaksword is actually pretty good for that. And yeah, it's just really nice because, a lot of times we have the ability to get them out of hand, but being able to get them off the board and resolve their abilities is nice as well. 1, 2, 3, 6. So these were the 6 links that we played. The one change that I had made previously was that I was playing Zeus. I decided to take him out because unfortunately it wasn't coming up as much as I wanted it to. This deck is very good at being able to break into boards without having to Zeus. Since we are playing the Phantom Knights, we are playing the Breaksword, which allows us to, destroy some cards and obviously gives us more extenders to be able to play into our opponent's board. But Gloomy actually put in a lot of work, especially in the Mirror or any other deck. There's a lot of fusion decks still running around like Despia. There's still a lot of decks running around, like the Synchro decks that play Chaos Ruler and things like that. They rely on darks. They have darks in their deck. So this allows us to be able to extend into other plays. It allows us to be able to set up Appaloosa. If you get D-shifted, it does allow you to set up Appaloosa as well. Depending on the matchup, it can be very, very important. We also had the ability to use it to link climb in the event that we used our IP and Unicorn on a turn prior. And then, of course, it allows us to be able to, take boss cards out of our opponent's graveyard and just really, beat our opponent up with them. So that was a really good change. I'm glad that I did do that because it did make a world of a difference, especially in the Mirror. I want to be able to take my opponent's Marill and mill with it and things like that. So it definitely did help out a lot. So that was the extra deck. And again, a lot of those key points that I go over in regards to certain cards, they were very important. As I said, playing the deck like that makes a huge difference because, of course, you're trying to gain advantage from your opponent having the outs to your board or to your combos, and you want to make sure that you have the ability to, play around that or to play into it. So, yeah, so let's go over the side deck. I went with 3 Lightning Storm. I wanted to make sure that I had something for the ExoSister matchup, for the Flandres matchup. And actually, I didn't see any of these in those matchups. Actually, I think game 2, I only seen Lightning Storms and evenly matched. And I didn't even see a monster. I saw one of my field card and he ashed it, and then I couldn't play the Lightning Storms. So yeah, it was actually pretty bad. 3 evenly, 3 Lava Golem. Obviously, evenly is for the Mirror, Lava Golems for Splight. We wanted to make sure we have access to pretty much everything, a lot of the meta decks. We went with the 1 Harpies, 1 Red Reboot, because of course we wanted to make sure that we had back row hate as well. I do use evenly as well, and Lightning Storm is back row hate, but obviously we wanted some more indirect ones. And then I played these for going first. I like Solemn Judgment and the Crime for going first. I think these are very good cards because this is a searchable Omni. And then, of course, you have your Solemn Judgments to protect you. This deck loses very hard to evenly. Unfortunately, there's no other way to play around it. So you definitely want to have an out to it that's direct. So you either have the searchable trap. And of course, if we already open up a Judgment, we normally don't go for this. We ended up searching for the Meta Noise. But yeah, this is what we decided to go for the side deck. So yeah, like I said, the deck performed very well. RNG was most definitely on my side for the mills. People just did not see, obviously, the Phantom Knight package coming. The Phantom Knight package honestly played very, very well because, of course, it gave us another outlet into playing the game. And I think that's why Tearlaments has really been thriving more recently, is because people are starting to realize that, obviously, there's more cards that you can play in the deck that obviously do play out of graveyard. And, I think taking advantage of that is obviously one of the most important things, honestly. Because it is a mill deck at the end of the day, but obviously since we are only playing so many tier monsters and there's only so many tier monsters in the game at the moment, having access to other engines just, makes it really, really good. So, but yeah, I just wanted to share the deck with you guys again, because of course, as I said, I performed very, very well, and I did very well with it, and I made a couple of changes. So I want to make sure that you guys understood that, because every time I can transform the deck and make it better, we want to make sure that we're doing so. So yeah, if you guys have any comments or any questions in the comment sections, definitely go ahead and throw them down there. Like and subscribe. Hope you guys enjoy the content.